Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Business Takeout, the Healthy Entrepreneur Show. I'm your host, Maxine Choy, and I'm a health and nutrition coach, and I work with women to help them achieve attainable health and fitness goals. The Business Takeout is a podcast that recognizes Black wealth through business education. So we are on this platform to interview entrepreneurs and anybody who is in business or working for a business to help us to create a community so that we can help each other to grow, sustain, and just maintain a balanced and healthy life. So I have a guest tonight. His name is Chedwick Crieghtney. And tonight we're going to pick Chedwick's brain, is what I dubbed it, because I've known Chedwick for a while. And I find that you are one of the rare of men who I've come across who has a mindset of how do I say, a little bit like Malcolm X and a little bit of Muhammad Ali, and then a little bit of like somebody like a Jim Carrey. So I'm putting you in that box because I think that's how I can describe you because of the multitude of personalities you have. But anyway, I value your friendship, and I'm just so happy and honored that you decided to be a guest on the show. And I want to introduce you right now to the audience. If you are watching from anywhere in the world, please do like and share this video, and hopefully this episode will be of interest to you. Chedwick is the host of his own podcast, Ched Talks, and Chedwick is also the owner, CEO, the whole gamut of his own business called Hookshot, which is a media production company. So Chedwick, if you could introduce yourself, that would be great. Sorry, I'm not happy with my audio there. Sorry about that.
Your audio is fine. The video. Thank you so much, Maxine. My name is Chedwick Crieghtney, as you so clearly put it, and I am the owner of Hookshot Media Productions, and as well as the host of talk show Ched Talks, in which I similarly, I educate and I interview people that are not only entrepreneurs but are in all walks of life, and people that have some genuine input to help better all their lives. I think we're in a time now where creative input and collaboration and community is so important. So that's how I try to give back. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely, because that is true. You are not just a business person. You're a mentor. You're an educator. You exemplify a lot in what I see in what you do in the community and with the people around you, especially millennials. I noticed that you're passionate about them and talking about their resilience and just getting messages across, or maybe just trying to get them to get their voices out there. So that is something I've been seeing that you've been doing, and I think it's a great thing. I know your podcast right now is about resilience, and you're going to be branching off to something else, which I'm excited to hear about. But tonight, we're going to be picking your brain. And I think you and I have talked before about men and how men feel, whether it's emotional, physical, whatever, right? And one of the topics I want to talk to you about is when men face difficult situations, whether it's men or women, or even if it's a couple or a family, how do you go about looking at these difficult situations as an opportunity as opposed to an obstacle? Tell me how you've come across something like that personally.
Right. So personally, when I'm faced with challenges and I see others that are faced with challenges, the first thing that I try to do is to take just pause for a minute. Yeah. And then, I always ask myself this question before I do anything. I said, what's the worst that could happen?
Love that question.
Right. Oftentimes, the things that make us pause, or things that make us not see the light at the end of the tunnel, or the good in a situation, it's because we have fear. There's often, fear tends to leap in, and it's the automatic reaction that we have. And I always have this quote about, fear being, fear just being a response. It's an action.
Absolutely.
right? And where, uh, where courage or to be brave, it has to be deliberate. It's something that you have to think about and say, okay, you know what, in spite of what I'm going to be going through or what I'm going through, I have to summon up the strength and the courage to be able to move forward. And that's the first thing I do. For anyone else, I think not everyone's going to take the same approach, obviously. But I would always say the first thing you do is pause, take a second, try to, really develop what is going on in your world as opposed to just acting or, like I said, react in fear. So then you can usually make a decision that's going to propel you forward.
Hey, Makisha.
Hey, Makisha.
As you were saying that, I think we all know what we want. We all know what we want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when an obstacle comes our way, it throws us off. And then it's like fight or flight. Either we say, okay, you know what, I'm going to keep doing this, or I'm going to stop because I'm going to give up. Right. But we ultimately know what we want. So the key is, how do we even stay in that zone and keep going and not let those obstacles come in our way? Because a lot of times people will throw in the towel. I know personally with COVID, it's made us either say, oh, I'm just going to keep going, right? With my vision, my dream, or I'm just going to stop, right? So how has that affected you in any way with obstacles that came your way?
Right. You're right. I think you have one of two choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me personally, I focus on giving back and helping others. So once I do that and stay true to myself, I think nowadays people are looking for you to be authentic, right?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
if you're trying to be authentic as best you can and as much as possible, then generally your direction is laid out for you. I think we get in trouble when we try to focus on so much and just what we want, rather than focus on how can we be present, how can we help people get through their lives. So it's about giving back to be able to get. So that's how so that's how I focus on it. I just take a small bite out of that big apple, just small bite at a time, and eventually you'll obtain your goal.
I like that, Ched. Okay, thank you for that. Manifestation versus fear. Do you manifest things, and do you find that it's worked for you, or do you fear
or faith? You mean fear?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Faith.
Oh, okay.
Manifestation versus faith. How does that?
Okay, so I think, oftentimes fear or faith is, some people look at it as just something from the biblical sense, from something from the that more on the religious side.
Right.
But I don't necessarily believe that. I don't think it's one either or. I think manifestation is the plan before you hit faith. So essentially, what we have to do is we have to believe in something greater than ourselves. I mean, you hear about The Secret, as a matter of fact, or we're saying the universe will bring to you what's for you, but it's because you have to have first a dream, right? And you try to manifest that dream by setting deadlines or dates to it, and you try to commit your five senses to it, right? So once you've committed your five senses to it, then the spirituality and you put faith in the universe or your God, something greater than yourself, and then you put the effort, which is what people most often forget.
Yeah, that's a good point. You do.
Yes, you have to move towards your goals. Yes. So once you put the effort in moving towards your goal, then often you really cannot fail, right? Mm-hmm. And that's when the faith comes in. If it doesn't happen in terms of your timelines, it's just the universe is not ready for you. Or sometimes it's just God saying, you know what, let me move something out of your way. So we have to have the faith in something greater than ourselves. Otherwise, we may always be disappointed if something doesn't happen on our timeline.
That's so true. I like the fact that you said we have to have faith, but then we actually have to do action.
Right.
Because if you manifest that, I'm going to land this job, or I'm going to be successful in my business, you can say that and believe it, but then you also have to take action. That's
right.
very important, because I've been guilty of that too. Like, I'll manifest something, or I'll pray on something, and when it does happen, or if I see it happening, I kind of like, okay, it's happening, but then I don't think I take the steps that I need, right? Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people sit around and they wait. They're saying, "Oh, God will provide, or the universe will provide, and I'm just going to believe in it."
Yeah.
But it's what I've often said is like it's effort meets belief equals manifestation to faith, right?
Absolutely.
You really have to move towards those things, and like I said, you commit to the universe, and you have to be totally committed. You have to lend yourself to something higher than yourself personally, and that's how where manifestation comes in, because everything starts with a dream.
Yep. Just like Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're known to be a leader, like in leadership. I see you always in that leadership role, especially with your sons and even the people who are on your staff members. What does it take to be a leader? What do you think it takes?
Yeah, it's not easy nowadays. Being a leader means, one, you gotta lead with compassion. You gotta really believe in people, and you also there are three keys that I say that you have to be a good leader.
Right.
You have to be authentic is one. In our
that.
previous generations, I think, or in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and sometimes in the early 2000s, the leadership role was defined, right? But part of being a leader is having the conscience and being conscientious enough to understand that you have to be willing to change, right? So first thing that you have to be authentic, meaning you have to bring your true self to the role, because like I said, most people have a bullshit meter right nowadays. So in our cancel culture that you're seeing, it's not that people are just canceling people. It's because they're actually exposing the BS. People are lying and they're not being their authentic self. So once they truly find who their character is, and they try to be present in that character, then for sure it leads to the next step, which is the ability to be to have confidence. So nobody's going to follow someone if they're not confident, if you're not believing in yourself and believing in others, right? So that certainly is one of the most important things, right? And the third thing I think is have to be able to be vulnerable. We talked about men, and sometimes maybe it's just the way you were brought up or the way society is. We're afraid to be vulnerable. We're afraid to leave ourselves out there because somehow we think that our security is going to be stripped from us. But it's been proven that that's not the case. If we're authentic and we, and we truly exude some confidence, and then, be a little bit vulnerable, then I think you should be fine. That I think are the qualities of the leader of the new world.
And this is not just necessarily in business. This could be just in your personal life. Like even as a male figure. I like that you talked about the vulnerability, and it's a sign of strength. It's not a sign of weakness. It's actually proven to be a sign of strength.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. There was a while back when when I started this, my Bellas and Fellas brunch and social, if you remember that,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I remember, yeah, and I remember when we were talking about the reason why I started, and it was because men and women, sorry, women, we are always coming together, whether it's
Right.
at a girlfriend's house or the restaurant or a big convention, and we would form a sisterhood. We would share everything, whether it's our personal, financial, whatever, well, not financial, but you know what I mean. So
Hmm.
women have a tendency to share. We share our fears and our emotions with each other, whereas men are not that open to tell another man that they're
Hmm.
struggling with whatever love, marriage, finances, and
Right.
relationships. So, but you said that you actually share that with some men in your life,
Right.
where you become vulnerable and share your fears.
Right.
Um, how what are you finding that men are? Why are men so afraid, or why don't men share these with their brother? Like, hey, listen, you know what? I'm having a tough time with my wife, or I'm having a tough time managing being a man of the house. Like, just whatever. Why do men
Right.
hide those emotions?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a competitive thing or it's just conditioning. It's probably
Oh,
more conditioning. And you articulated it perfectly. I think women get together and they share and they open and they become vulnerable and open up, so
yeah,
that they can begin the healing process, right?
yes.
And men, we come and we bump fists and we say, hey, how's that
How's the
ball game?
game?
That's right. And we
Yeah,
talk about those surface things, but we really truly don't get involved on the inside and what's troubling us and what's troubling you and how can I help and what direction can I take? I mean, personally, I grew up without a father. So anything that I learned, I had to seek it out from coaches. I mean, from a male perspective, of course, my mom
right.
was in my life and she gave me great guidance, but um, you want to look for those male figures who can help you with your issues. And
Yeah,
at that time, they weren't as they weren't allowed, they weren't being vulnerable. They showed this Superman type character that you thought, is that attainable? Is it really attainable? So from that standpoint, obviously now education is a big part of us learning. But what I personally do, is I have my brother and I have my nephew who are different generations, and we get together and we share the ability to be able to see the world outside of yourself and perhaps get someone else's point of view is it's extremely valuable in healing and in realizing that it's not just you in a situation. So when you're able to be vulnerable and you're able to share, then that's where you get all this stuff, the surface stuff that's boiled inside out.
but okay, I get that, and
Right.
you're completely right. But do you think that men make fun of each other? Like if you say, you tell somebody something very private that you're struggling with, and I mean, men, I'm sure you guys have a ton of things you struggle with, especially
Right.
as you get older. So, do your friends make fun of you, or when you get older, it's a little different, or
Yeah, you know what? I'm fortunate that I have a good group of friends around me, but
yeah,
by most part, yeah, you're right. We do tend to, I think guys are afraid to be embarrassed or they're afraid to expose certain things, for real. And they won't
yeah,
talk about those intimate things. Before, I think before that used to be the case. I think the men of today are being a lot more conscious, and they know that the ability to open up a little bit, even if your buddies might rag you a little bit, it really makes you better, and it actually draws you closer to them. So I think especially in the new generation, I think the millennials, I always try to focus on them because obviously they're the dominant in our world today, and they're the ones that's going to be so we have to be good stewards of this earth by helping guiding them and sharing with them. They are they're a lot more open with the things that are going on in their lives. But, if I can change it one step at a time, I just urge more men to be more open, more vulnerable, and talk about those things that may affect them years to come. And that may affect their generations.
Yeah, like I think even like men's retreats are good. That way you can just talk, right? Because
Yeah.
it's healing, it's therapeutic, and it's good for you to have that. And I mean, the only reason why I'm asking you this question is because I noticed that a lot of men, even to this day, they're still not sharing their intimate emotions or feelings with anyone because
Right.
it's not a part of the conversation. It's not, it's all about sports and whatever, right? And
Yeah.
cars and whatever. And it's always this machoism that they portray as opposed to just being real. And I mean, and with, on the flip side, women, well, it's getting a little different right now with how women interact with each other. But um, I just find it interesting that the dynamics never change. I think that okay, if somebody has a son now,
Mm-hmm.
I think the father will still teach him to be a macho or to have like this ego or this pride to be strong.
Right.
Right? I can't.
Well, that's a sensitive subject, and here's why. And I may be dragged over the coals for this, but the truth is, generations have changed. There's a time where women wanted that macho man, right? They wanted him guy to look like the old Western characters,
Yes.
like the Clint Eastwood, that that'll just chew up a bottle and spit it out kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
And then as time changed, they were looking for the sensitive guy, and they wanted someone. And we had some conversations, I think, before about masculinity and femininity, right? So then there came a time where they were looking for a guy that's sensitive. Okay, so guys were becoming more sensitive and more into their feelings and started talking about things that mattered, right? And while it served as maybe I don't know, maybe well for women to understand men a little bit better, what happened afterwards were all of a sudden women didn't like that. They didn't want guys to cry and to be that sensitive because they wanted something different. Right. So I think as time goes, and depending on what the flavor of the day is, people change their perspective, and men seem to adjust to that in some cases. But I think there's a balance there somewhere that a good balance, a happy medium that we have to find, where we're comfortable in our skin, we're confident in who we are, and then we choose to go forward with our best foot forward, and don't be afraid to kind of stand in your truth.
I like that. Stand in your truth. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so we're gonna get a little bit personal now.
Okay.
How do you stay looking so young? I'm not gonna ask you how old you are. If anybody wants to ask how old he is, feel free, but I'm not gonna ask. How do you stay young? So, what did you do? What did you do?
Well, you know what? It's all I do and did.
And don't say I woke up like this.
No, no. What I did was, I think I got into sports early. Okay, so that gave me good habits in terms of training and working out, and not be afraid to challenge my body physically. So that kind of gave me, and I was blessed that throughout my life, I didn't really have. I had one major injury, which was my Achilles, but prior to that, and I think I had that in 2010.
Right.
Prior to that, I never had any major injuries. So thanking God for that. That kind of helped me. But
absolutely.
Yeah, so the training or looking after yourself physically is something that I've always believed in. So I didn't drink. I never smoked. I never took any kind of substance, drugs, and I was very cautious when taking prescribed medication. So if
Right.
I didn't absolutely need it, I wasn't going to take it. So those are just some of the things that I do. And then so it's exercise and be mindful of what I eat is something that I've always done. So through that, I think if you do it early, it kind of forges a habit, right? And through that
Absolutely.
habit, it just becomes easier. Some people, they don't start until they're 35, 40, then they're starting to, so they wait until the doctor tells them before doing it so the doctor won't have to tell them.
I can't even tell you how that just irks me,
Right.
because the advice I've given to everybody is start early, make it become a regular part of your life,
Right.
and think about the future when you get older and then you start to work out all of a sudden. You know how hard that
Right.
is? It has to be a regular part of your life. And I think for men, there's a not a myth, but there's something going around about women and men as we age, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as men age, there's a few things that's just not going to be the same, right? It's just not going to be the same, right?
Right.
We all know that, and that's a huge thing for a man. So when you said you always worked out, you never drank, you never smoked, you took care of yourself, and you were always mindful of what you were doing. You probably maybe you weren't thinking of your future, how it would impact your future, but you certainly were thinking about how you wanted to be in the present.
Mm-hmm.
So as men get older, things start to change and things don't always work,
Right.
right? Women, on the other hand, yes, things change physically, appearance
Mm-hmm.
wise, and all that stuff, right? But we still have that longevity. We have
Right.
more of a longevity than men do because
Right.
we're just different, right? So a man needs to ensure that from an early age, you start doing that checklist. Am I drinking too much? Am I smoking too much? Am I
Right.
that has? I mean, I'm so now at this age when I'm seeing men who are struggling, and you look back at what they did. Because I was going to ask you, what would your 20-year-old Ched say to yourself, right? And I think that you'd probably say things like, "Well, I ate well anyway. I took care of myself." But there's a lot of men here who are saying, if my 20-year-old self could come back right now, they would quit. They would quit the drinking and that kind of lifestyle or whatever it is, and
Right.
took care of themselves, because it pays off now, because you now have extended your life by another 40 years at
Yeah.
least,
Hopefully. Yeah.
right? Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for sure you have. So yeah, what were you
Well,
gonna
I
say?
always, I think whether, I think maybe there's a bit of me being mindful of it at a younger
Yeah.
age. What I, what I try to do is the one thing I never wanted to be a slave in my body. Right.
Yes.
So you often see people who are, their mind is sharp, but they're physically, they're just not able to do anything. So they're sitting there like a vegetable. And that was one of my greatest fear is, obviously there are things that are either accidents that happen or people that, for whatever reason, they have some kind of ailment. But I never wanted to have a sharp mind and not have the physical tools to be able to
Yeah.
move around and do the things I want. So I think that's one of the reasons why I really focused on trying to maintain a good diet, exercise, and a good diet, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, so for me, that was a good focus. And what I tell my 20-year-old self, I would tell him to invest in Google.
Yeah. You know what? That's a good one.
Yeah,
And YouTube.
yeah, that's right. On YouTube.
I tell you, I know it's all about the money, right? When you think back, right? It's all about the
Well, it
money.
just makes things a little easier. That's
For sure.
it.
Yeah. Of course. Do you believe in diets?
Oh, I believe in moderation.
Okay.
Uh, you know, I don't necessarily believe in diets because I think they just make you yo-yo. They go up and down.
Absolutely.
I think if people take like and I know it's so much more difficult for some people than others,
Yes, it
because
is.
some people are, they tend to put on weight a lot easier, or some people, just just naturally were a little bit bigger, right? So it's a little bit more challenging for them. And in fact, I think I saw someone post something on Facebook the other day. They send a note out to the general public saying, "Look, I need anybody know of a good pill that I can take because or some kind of medication because she needs to lose weight." And she was serious, and people were piping in with all their recommendations. Right. And some of the best advice people gave is just that, you know what, balance out your diet and exercise and making sure that you check with the doctor to ensure stability and push yourself a little bit. And that's the best advice I would give to someone in that case. Right?
Absolutely. It's all about balancing out, thinking about what you're having for breakfast. And then when lunch begins, well, what did I have for lunch? Okay. Was it high carb or was it? And then, have a healthy lunch, and same with your dinner. And one of the best advice I can give anyone is this: if 60%, I'm not even going to say 50, but let's hope it's not 80%. But if most of your food is coming from the doorbell or from your car window, you've got a problem.
Uber Eats.
Yeah, the doorbell or your car window.
Yeah.
We've got a problem. So it's important that we focus on foods that come from the ground as much as we can, and it's prepared at home. Simple, right? Yeah. And of course, even when you do that, sure, there's cultural differences where the food prepared at home can be fattening as well. But at least you're on the right track. Now you just have to modify it. Just make sure you don't overeat and watch what you eat. Because when a man gains weight, in different areas, there's signs that can develop different heart diseases or other things that can lead to other problems in their lives, especially when they get older. So as a man, I think that it's important to be more mindful of what you eat because it does affect you much more than you think. And same with women too, right?
Yeah. I think men, as you age, I think people just have to be mindful, like you said, and watch yourself. What I used to do is I used to experiment with my own body, right? Yeah, I used to experiment from season to season, either eating less, eating more. The one thing I've always maintained consistently is a decent amount of water. I don't love water, and I would just drink 2 glasses first thing in the morning. That's one thing that's remained consistent through the last 30 years. Every morning, first thing I get up, I drink 2 glasses of water before and then coffee and whatever else, right? But outside of that is I've tried to drop some weight, not by dieting, but just the different forms of exercising. I either drop some weight and going a little bit lighter, or I try to gain some weight through muscle, additional muscle or whatnot. And, I just see I try to find a good, comfortable fit for myself. When I was, playing sports, more competitively, I tried to drop a little bit more weight and be a little bit more lighter and more nimble. But then, depending on the winter, I see a lot of people with, COVID and with the winter months, they put on a lot of weight. And the struggle is on come April, May to kind of get ready for June. Right?
I see it all the time. I see
it all the time. Yeah. So it's a struggle, but people, some people achieve it, and I think if they just try to maintain a little bit of that from even in the winter months, and just be mindful of their foods, then they should be all right.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Thanks, Ched. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about why it is so hard to let go.
Okay.
Because letting go means letting go of something that is either no longer good for you or serving you, or it's detrimental to your health or your environment. So a lot of times people fear letting go because they feel that it's a final decision. They're not prepared for the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think people struggle with letting go?
There are a variety of reasons. By most part, I think the main one is ownership. People People claim ownership over everything, right?
Yeah.
And once they learn to separate themselves and be happy with what they receive, right? So, something come to you through the universe, you're grateful, you're thankful, and for the moment, but don't claim ownership over it. If they claim ownership over it, then it's much more difficult to let go. But once they've come to terms with the fact that, the universe gave me this, or loaned me this, or put this in my possession, and blessed me with this moment, then they can see something beyond just themselves. They can see the higher powers, or the law of the land that kind of blessed them in that moment. And if they truly, like I said earlier, if you truly give yourself to something greater than yourself, then oftentimes you'll realize that, times, moments, whatever it is, fears, whatever it is that you have, those too will pass, and
Right.
you'll be more mindful and being present as opposed to worrying about what could have happened. People worry so much about the present, about the past and about the future. Yeah, they worry about the past and the future. Well, all we have, really, none of those exist. The past doesn't exist because it's gone. And the future is not here yet. So if you remain present, then oftentimes you can have a great life. You can, you're not worrying about what's going to happen. Obviously there's some calculation that goes on that you have to be, worried about, or conscious of the fact that you have bills and you have those kind of things, and there are things that you want in your life, and you try to manifest those. But if you don't, if you worry so much about what's too far ahead, then you'll never truly achieve it. And then if you live in the past, then you're just going to
move forward.
Yeah, you're going to be in pain, because either you're going to be having regrets, or you're just not, or you're just going to be worried about what passed you by.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like I said, letting go means deciding and losing out and losing control of a situation.
Right.
It's fear of the unknown, the uncertainties of it, and giving up. So there's so many aspects in it, and depending on what that is, if it's a job, there's a different reason why we don't want to let go. It could be for financial reasons.
Right.
But I think the fear of missing out comes into play, because they think if you let go, you're going to miss out, right?
Right.
So that's it's a pretty. I mean, I know it was the last question I asked you. We could have started off in the beginning, but I just wanted to just touch on that, because I find that it is probably the number one struggle that people have, whether it's personal or even for their health. Letting go of the belief that that you can't get your body back,
Right.
or the belief that your health diagnosis is detrimental to you, and you're gonna have to live with it. Letting
Right.
go of those thoughts, right? So we're
Right.
getting deep into the thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Letting go of the fear, and yeah, I just find that letting go has become so hard for people, when it's, even if it's in a relationship or a home or whatever. It's the letting go part is just so difficult. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. It's funny. A woman called me today. She had some concerns. She hadn't been to the doctor for a while, and she's afraid to go to the doctor. And she said it's something that she perhaps may have learned from her mom, because her mom always never wanted to go to the doctor because she was afraid of what they might say, right? So she neglected going to the doctor for almost 4 years. And I thought, and that's a prime example of fear, being ruled by fear, right? And the inability to just let go of those past thoughts and move on. Now, this woman in particular did have some early diagnosis of some a situation, but she fears now going to the doctor. And I had to say to her, you know what? You're fearing something that may not have happened or never
Yeah.
will happen. So it's about, you're right, it's about letting go of the fear to be able to move forward in your life. And it's not easy for everyone, but there are steps that you can take. I think first step you have to take is just take small steps and go at your pace. You can't try to run when you're just learning how to walk. So I think taking small steps, getting a support from others around you is valuable in making sure or helping you to let go and move forward.
I like that. Let go and move forward and getting the support from people around you.
Yeah.
Because that's what really helps.
Yep.
Great. This is great. Thank you. So, Ched, what
Mm-hmm.
advice can you give anyone in the audience to help them stay healthy?
Well, stay healthy. I can simply say I can just speak from my perspective. I think people, they have to clear their minds, and that means just moving slower. I think the pandemic has forced us all to kind of sit back and take a step back, review our own lives, our own situation. It's made us think more about community, which was really lost, and
Yeah.
in fact, we're getting more community on social media, and it's not necessarily the best thing. In fact, technology is a great thing, and it's helped us propel forward in some ways, but it's also made us disconnect for a little bit. And the only way we're going to get that back is, I think people are starting to realize it, that the relationship that you forge on social media, they're not authentic. They're not necessarily authentic. Not until you look that person in the eye and you can actually hug them and be in that moment with them,
Yep.
then you're not truly authentic. Because, some of my millennials, I'll tell them that they have thousands and thousands of people on their social media. And they say, oh yeah, I'm friends with this, I'm friends with this. I'm friends with just a like and a not like, a swipe or whatever. But if they were to ask that person to show up for them, they wouldn't, because the relationship is not genuine. It's not authentic. Right?
Absolutely. It's so true. I met somebody who says, oh, Maxine, we have so many mutual friends. But I said, I don't know half of them personally. They're just friends they're just social friends. And
you're right.
There's no authenticity in social friends because they don't know you. They haven't seen you face to face. They haven't seen you laugh or cry or whatever, or helped you in a situation. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, so in the new world, when things open back up, that's the only healthy advice I can give people is, obviously be mindful of what you eat, exercise a little bit, and get true people in your lives, and don't be so quick to discard people simply because you have disagreements. And I find that happens a lot. I see that on social media, people all the time. Oh, I want to get this one out of my world, or disregard people.
Block and delete. Block and delete.
Block and delete, whatever it is. I think, it's such a juvenile way of looking at things, because we're all imperfect, right? So what we have to do is start to look at people, and obviously, if they don't serve you, if they bring a lot of negativity to your space, then maybe you want to reallocate, right? Relocate. So I think that's part of your healthy journey. If you're unable to stomach a lot of things, then that's your decision to be able to do. But don't listen to people and just disregard people because you have a disagreement with them, or you don't see things exactly the way they are. Because like I said, unless they're God, then they shouldn't judge.
Oh, I like that. Unless you're God, you shouldn't judge. Love that. Thank you so much, Chedwick. I do appreciate you being a host on the show. Thank you for sharing a little part of your life with us.
Thank you.
There were some questions that came up, or comments.
Sure.
Just read them real quick before we end. I don't know if there's any. Okay, so English Forbes says, we have to believe in ourselves because people take advantage of the weak. Absolutely. Some men wouldn't share their feelings because they were taught always to stay strong. Yeah, You agree with that,
that.
Chad?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yvonne, oh my goodness. Hey, Yvonne. I went to school with Yvonne.
Mm-hmm.
Great conversation. Letting go is also the fear of change and the unknown. Yeah, absolutely. It's the fear of change. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks, English Forbes. And with that said, I want to thank you, Ched. And how could everyone reach you going forward?
I can be reached tomorrow night's my show.
Yes.
They can reach me on Facebook at Ched Talks, or they can reach me at my Instagram or Facebook. On my website. My website for my company is hookshot.com. And on Instagram, it's just my name, Chedwick Crieghtney.
Awesome.
Just look for me.
Thank you so much, Chedwick, for being a host on the show. For all the audience, I thank you so much for tuning in. And have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.